Thanks for riding along with me and the trip yesterday. It's a new day. Um, it was a little difficult for us to finish the ride because there were instances where the weather was getting bad and it was raining here in one section, and after that it's dry and then it gets wet again. So I couldn't maintain the energy to continue with the review within one day. So anyway, I think it's better, at least I've had the chance to collect my thoughts, and I believe I'm ready to tell you what I think of this bike right here. So first of all, I listed a few things down just for you guys to have a sense of structure when it comes to reviewing these things, especially with this bike because it's quite nice and I really don't want to say a lot of bad things about it. First of all, of course, I'd like to thank Royupa, my friend, for lending me his bike for the weekend, and actually it's been with me for a month, but I've only got to ride it over the weekend. So thank you, man, really, thank you. So first things first, this is a 2017 Yamaha R3 in the beautiful gray color. I really love the color and I'm really impressed with the color he chose, because of all the colorways that were offered for this generation. It seems to be a really good choice when it comes to the color. It's really classic, it's classy, but it's not too racy. I think it really accentuates a lot of the angles and the shape of the bike. So that's a good thing right there. As for motorcycle specs, I'm not gonna bore you with horsepower numbers, torque numbers, fuel economy readings. That doesn't really matter much to me. So if you wanna have a look at those things, there's always Google and a lot of other sources for you to check up on. So just head on over, just pause the video, Google the bike for a few minutes, have a look at the specs, and then come back to me, right? But since of course you're staying, we're gonna start talking about what Matthew has done to his bike, and actually the accessories or the upgrades that he's done to it are actually very classy or very practical. So he started with installing fork brace, which really helps stiffen up the forks. It really eliminates understeer, especially during the bumpy roads, because it avoids the forks from flexing left and right when it's leaned over. So it's a lot more stable. That's a good part. Of course, adjustable levers for us with shorter fingers, because I believe Matthew is just a little bit taller than I am, and I'm 5'2", so not the tallest guy in the group or in any group for that matter. So of course, the adjustable levers really help a lot with brake feel. The bearings on them compared to the stock ones, they seem to move a little smoother, so at least when you're trying to brake hard on the limit, it's easier to modulate because you have that much more freedom in controlling how much or how little you're gonna give the brakes. And next would be, I think, a really nice addition was the adjustable rear sets. That's one of the best things I've discovered about bikes, is that of course we can always try to tailor them to how we ride, to the way we want to be sitting or just moving around on the bike. It affects a lot on the rider triangle. The rider triangle, by the way, would be the seat and the handlebar and the foot pegs. So there's a triangle there. So if you can make adjustments to the comfort or the way you're positioned on the bike, it really helps with cornering, it helps with fatigue, it helps you enjoy the bike for a lot longer, and I think that matters a lot. So adjustable rear sets with a properly located foot peg position, I think, is a really great addition. After that, now we have the tires. So the original tires on these, I believe, are Dunlops, if I'm not mistaken. But I haven't tried them out. This bike came with a nearly new, brand new, what's this? Metzeler Sportex Streets. They're a single compound street tire. They did well for what they are. They're not the most expensive ones available, but they're not the cheapest ones either. So it's kind of in the middle when it comes to the category for, I think, the tires that you can put on this bike. Of course, you can always choose better tires if you want to, especially if you're doing a lot of wet days or track days, or you really want to go racing on it. Of course, there's always those choices. But given that this is the bike that we have and these are the tires that it came with, there's really no problem with them. It's just that when the going gets really tough, or when you really start pushing, especially on track, you start to feel the front end start to slide and push a little bit. When you get on the gas too early at the tighter corners, the rear starts to squirm. But I'm not exactly sure. It might be a tire pressure thing, or it might be a lack of adjustment on the rear shock. But again, those are things that you can work around with. But those are what I felt on my ride, especially on the track. Okay, now I'd like to start now with, or I'd like to continue to tell you about the bad things, because I've told you what I think about the accessories and how have they performed. So this time it's on with the bad things. And first up, especially with Yamaha now, on the lower end of the spectrum, anything less than a Yamaha MT-10 is going to have usually crap suspension. The Tracer 900 GT now, the newest one, that has well-sorted suspension, even the 2021 MT-09. But the ones before that, the bikes before that, and the ones below that, so we're talking about the old MT XSR range, these ones, the N-Maxes, the X-Maxes, the scooters, they don't really have the best stock suspension. They don't perform as well as you would want them to. This bike is nice. It has great springs for Philippine roads, but when it comes to damping, it doesn't really do much by way of control, especially with the rear shock. When you try to corner the bike really hard and then you hit some bumps along the way, the bike just, you feel the whole swing arm and the wheel just starts to float, and it doesn't really try to reconnect with the tire. So it's an unsettling feeling, and I'm not really comfortable with it. Maybe there are just some ways to upgrade this eventually, but that's just the case in most of these budget bikes anyway. You do tend to upgrade them, which is the fun part of it, right? Okay, next part for me is the handlebar angle. The bars are set a little bit too inward. It forces me to put a lot of weight on the outside part of my palm. So yes, during cornering, of course, it doesn't matter much, and it does help when you're trying to go on the throttle, when you're trying to control how well you're steering inside the corner. Mid-corner, it's great, but especially when you're upright and on road bikes like this, in conditions like ours, on roads that we have, which are primarily straight roads, they're not the comfiest because it tends to get a little bit wristy and it gets tiring after a while. And the next part would be the engine. While the engine is a great powerhouse, it's nice. There's a lot of horsepower. When you really rev it, it's there. But on roads as intended, where these bikes would normally live, there's not enough torque in it. Maybe it's due to the stock, what do you call this? The stock exhaust. because this only has a slip-on. Um, Everything from the headers to the muffler box is still stock, so I think there's a lot of restriction there. And when you try to get some drive out of the corners, you just pin it, and then you have to wait a few seconds for the revs to build, and then there it goes. So I think it would really benefit the bike if you could give it a bit more torque, if you can let it breathe a little better. Since this bike, I remember, I'm sorry I forgot, it's that it also has a K&N race filter already installed. So I think the next logical step would be to complete the exhaust system to help it breathe, right? And the next one, of course, it adds on to the torque. I think you need a little shorter gearing, maybe 1 or 2 teeth more at the back or 1 tooth less at the front, just to help it really just get out of the corners faster. And I think that would be a really, really balanced bike if you could finish the suspension and the suspension and the exhaust and the gearing. I think it would really, really help. Right? So if you could give it full system, you're saving about 3-4 kilos. And I think that's a big thing, especially when it comes to the handling of the bike. It really adds to the experience with how well you can leave the corner and jump from one corner to another. Getting to the next corner a little bit faster is, I think, gonna make this a really, really fun bike. And okay, on with the good things. The beautiful handling. It's just so beautiful. I love it. The way it just tips into corners, and you start entering a really slow corner, and then you're going fast in it. When you enter it and just lean it over, it just really helps you along. The chassis feels very solid. You know what the front end is doing, and you know that it's with the good tires that it has, it never really gave me a lot of doubt on road. But on track, I think I haven't really tested it out much. It takes a really good rider to make the most out of this bike. I know I can't. I'm not enough for it. Maybe on track with a lot more training for me, maybe I could maximize it. But as it is, it's riding well below my limits. So I don't think it might be a crashable bike even if you tried. It's really safe and it's really forgiving, and I think that's the whole point of the segment of the 300s, the 250s, and the 400s, because you're going fast, but you're not going so fast that it could kill you. And I think this is a really good bike for people to try to develop their skills. So if you're on a big bike, and if you're used to riding big bikes with a lot of power, with a lot of torque, it becomes, yes, it's underpowered, definitely, but it opens up a lot when it comes to the handling part of things, and it really, really teaches you. And I think that's a great thing with these. Think about it. If you're a big bike rider and you want to develop your skills, it makes sense. It really underlines the fact that these bikes sell a lot everywhere in the world. The sales numbers are just really high because of that part alone. And as far as for the guys on the smaller bikes moving up to big bikes, I think this is also the perfect time or the perfect platform for you guys to move up into, because it helps you develop how to control the power a little bit more. Because I think in certain conditions it has enough power to break traction with it, so you begin to respect how to manage the power. It's not like when you're riding your raiders and your snipers, you just whack the throttle open, because there's really not a lot of power. Even if it's modified, if you have good tires, it will be difficult to break traction. So on these bikes, at least you begin to try to respect the limits. And since these bikes are proper big bikes, like with a tank in between, your legs, a properly balanced chassis. If you spend enough money on the upgrades that you think you might need, or the ones that I told you it needs, it would really help, because it handles very differently to the smaller ones. This feels like an R6 back in 03, which was not a bad thing. It was excellent. It had right way up forks. Mine was an 03. It had the same setup as this one, just a bigger engine and bigger brakes, but basically it handled pretty much the same. And I've learned a lot from that, so I think you guys would enjoy a lot from this bike too. Yeah, so, and I just really want to talk about how it feels, and I think I've pretty much covered all of it. So I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you understood a few things about the topic today. And yeah, thank you. Just have fun and enjoy your rides. I'll see you again soon. And please like, share, and subscribe. Okay, bye.